Some gemstones shine like jewelry. These do something far stranger. They look like objects pulled from a forgotten vault. Ancient copper coins, buried statues, royal relics covered in centuries of green patina. But none of them were made by human hands. They were created deep underground by pressure, chemistry, and time. Today we're counting down 10 green gemstones whose colors resemble ancient copper treasures so closely they almost feel stolen from lost civilizations. Some are affordable, some are rare, and one near the end looks less like a gemstone and more like something a museum would never sell. Let's begin. Ranked 10th. Veracite. Not every treasure shines in gold. Some treasures survive in silence. At first glance, Veracite can look less like a gemstone and more like a fragment chipped from an ancient copper coin buried for centuries. Its surface often carries soft green tones, muted seafoam layers, and subtle matrix patterns that resemble weathered metal once held by forgotten hands. That resemblance is exactly what makes this stone so captivating. Unlike flashy gems built for showroom lights, Veracite appeals to a different instinct, the attraction to age, rarity, and objects that seem to carry history even when newly discovered. This mineral forms when phosphate-rich water interacts with aluminum-bearing rock in dry environments over long periods of time. The process is slow, quiet, and geological rather than dramatic. Yet the result can be remarkably elegant. Smooth apple-green masses, mint tones, or aged patina shades that feel more archaeological than ornamental. That unusual look has made Veracite popular with collectors who prefer understated stones over obvious luxury. In the American Southwest, some deposits became especially respected for producing material with spiderweb matrix patterns and rich, natural color. Well-cut pieces can resemble museum artifacts rather than standard jewelry inserts. And that difference matters. Many viewers expect green gemstones to imitate emerald. Veracite does the opposite. It avoids brilliance and instead offers texture, depth, and the visual language of something old and valuable. That makes it memorable in a market crowded with polished sparkle. Useful value becomes clear when shopping or collecting. Genuine Veracite is usually opaque to semi-opaque, softer than many mainstream gemstones, and better suited for pendants, earrings, beads, or collector cabochons than high-impact daily rings. Surface scratches can occur more easily than with harder stones, so careful wear is important. Strong, even natural color and attractive matrix patterns often command the most attention. Another reason it earns this position on the list is accessibility. Compared with elite green gems, quality Veracite can still offer distinctive beauty without extreme pricing. That creates an entry point for collectors who want character instead of status branding. But even Veracite only hints at what comes next. Because the next stone doesn't just resemble an ancient copper treasure. It looks like something pulled from a desert tomb where no light has entered for centuries. Ranked 9th. Gaspeite. Not every treasure was preserved in vaults or palaces. Some seem to have waited beneath open sky. Gaspeite carries the kind of green often associated with copper objects buried in dry ground for generations. Its tones can range from dusty mint to richer apple green, sometimes mixed with brown host rock, earthy veining, or weathered textures that resemble metal slowly transformed by time. It rarely looks manufactured. It looks found. That quality makes Gaspeite different from many familiar green gemstones. While others rely on brilliance, transparency, or polished perfection, Gaspeite often wins attention through age-like character. A finished cabochon can resemble a ceremonial fragment, a trade token, or a decorative fitting once attached to something far larger and now forgotten. The mineral itself is a nickel carbonate, with nickel playing a major role in its color. Depending on origin and composition, the appearance can shift noticeably from one specimen to another. Some pieces are pale and subtle. Others show stronger saturation with striking contrast between green surface areas and surrounding matrix. That variation gives collectors something increasingly rare in modern markets: individuality. No two convincing pieces feel exactly the same. Important material has been associated with regions such as Australia and parts of Canada, and that limited mainstream visibility has helped preserve its niche appeal. Many buyers have heard of emerald, jade, or turquoise. Far fewer have handled genuine gaspeite. In collecting psychology, unfamiliarity can become an advantage. Discovery itself adds value. For viewers who appreciate hidden quality over obvious branding, this stone often lands surprisingly well. It does not announce status. It rewards closer attention. Useful value begins with realistic expectations. Gaspeite is generally softer than highly durable gems, such as sapphire or diamond, so it performs best in pendants, earrings, bolo ties, beads, and occasional wear rings set with protection. Rough daily abrasion, hard impacts, and careless storage can damage the polish over time. When judging quality, buyers usually focus on color strength, natural visual texture, balanced cutting, and a clean surface finish. Because gaspeite is typically opaque, and transparency is far less important than personality. Stones with believable matrix and strong natural presence often outperform material that appears too flat or overly uniform. There is another reason gaspeite earns this position. Some gemstones impress instantly, then fade from memory. Gaspeite tends to do the opposite. The longer it is studied, the more convincing its ancient character becomes, and that quiet power leads naturally to the next entry. A gemstone whose green was admired by temples, dynasties, and civilizations long before modern luxury names ever existed. Ranked 8th, turquoise. Long before display cases, auction houses, or luxury branding, some stones were already being treasured. Turquoise belongs to that older world. Its finest material can resemble ancient copper artifacts aged by centuries of wind, touch, and time. Blue-green to green surfaces with soft matrix lines that feel almost architectural. In certain pieces, the stone looks less like a gemstone and more like a preserved fragment from a temple wall, ceremonial mask, or royal ornament unearthed from beneath sand and stone. That association is not imagination. Turquoise has been valued across multiple civilizations for thousands of years. It appeared in burial objects, protective amulets, decorative inlays, and elite adornment long before many modern gems became commercial icons. Few stones on this list carry such direct historical credibility. Chemically, turquoise forms through copper-rich water interacting with aluminum and phosphorus in arid environments. Copper contributes the blue side of its color range, while iron and dehydration can push some material toward greener tones. Those greener examples often align most strongly with the ancient copper treasure aesthetic, aged, earthy, and unmistakably old in character. This is why turquoise continues to resonate with mature audiences. It does not need excessive brilliance to feel valuable. Its appeal comes from heritage, symbolism, and the confidence of a material that has survived trend after trend. For collectors, source can matter significantly. Material associated with historic mining districts in the American Southwest, Persia, Egypt, or Tibet often carries additional storytelling value. Even casual viewers sense the difference between a stone with lineage and one sold only for color. Useful value also separates smart buyers from impulse buyers. Natural untreated turquoise is increasingly harder to find in some markets because stabilized or imitation material is common. Stabilization can improve durability, but collectors usually distinguish between natural untreated pieces and heavily altered commercial stock. Asking about treatment is essential. Because turquoise is relatively softer than sapphire-class gems, it performs best in pieces that avoid constant abrasion. Pendants, earrings, and carefully worn rings are usually safer than rough daily use. Harsh chemicals, heat, and oils can also affect some material over time. Another reason this stone ranks here is emotional recognition. Even viewers unfamiliar with gemology often trust turquoise instantly. It feels proven, familiar, but never ordinary. Still, history alone cannot secure the higher positions on this countdown. The next gemstone looks as if a copper treasure chest spent centuries beneath seawater, its surface carrying colors no ordinary relic could keep. Ranked 7th, Chrysocolla. If an ancient bronze treasure were lost at sea and recovered centuries later, it might look remarkably close to Chrysocolla. This gemstone often carries flowing mixtures of green, teal, turquoise blue, and deep earth tones that resemble oxidized copper exposed to salt water, pressure, and time. Some pieces appear like fragments from a submerged chest, ceremonial vessel, or decorative shield lifted from a forgotten harbor. Few stones create such immediate imagery without needing explanation. Its beauty comes from copper-rich geological environments where mineral solutions move through fractures and cavities before gradually depositing hydrated copper silicate material. Because that process can overlap with quartz, malachite, turquoise, or other copper minerals, Chrysocolla frequently forms in complex patterns rather than simple uniform color. That unpredictability is exactly what collectors admire. No two serious specimens feel identical. One stone may show ocean green waves crossing dark matrix. Another may reveal islands of vivid blue inside muted bronze-like host rock. A third can look almost painted by hand. In a market full of repetitive calibrated gems, that individuality becomes valuable. For audiences drawn to hidden luxury rather than obvious status, Chrysocolla offers something stronger than sparkle, narrative texture. It looks like it has already lived a life before being cut. Lapidaries often favor higher quality Chrysocolla material stabilized by natural quartz content, sometimes sold as Chrysocolla in quartz or gem silica, when conditions produce more translucent premium forms. Those rarer examples can command far higher prices than casual buyers expect, especially when saturation is strong and structure remains stable. Useful value becomes important here because the name Chrysocolla covers material with varying durability. Softer porous examples require gentle treatment and are better suited for pendants, earrings, or collector pieces. Quartz-rich material can be more durable and suitable for broader jewelry use. Knowing which type is being purchased matters far more than many beginners realize. When assessing quality, buyers often watch for vivid, natural color contrast, stable polish, attractive pattern flow, and minimal, dull, chalky areas. Unlike diamond-style grading, personality plays a major role. The most memorable pieces are usually the ones that look impossible to duplicate. There's also emotional appeal in the timing of this stone. Many viewers aged 30 to 65, plus, increasingly prefer objects with depth over disposable perfection. Chrysocolla speaks that language naturally. Yet, even a gemstone that looks recovered from the ocean cannot match what comes next. The next entry feels less like treasure found underwater and more like something once carried through royal courts, where green signaled power long before gemstones were standardized for retail shelves. Ranked 6th, Chrysoprase. Not every ancient treasure needed ornate carvings or heavy metalwork to command respect. Some would have been valued for color alone. Chrysoprase carries that kind of presence. Its finest material shows rich apple green to deep fresh green tones with a smooth, almost wax-like glow that can resemble polished copper ornaments aged into elegance rather than decay. Instead of rough corrosion textures, this gemstone suggests a refined relic, something once held in a royal chamber, tucked inside a carved box, or traded across routes where rare materials moved quietly between powerful hands. That distinction matters. Earlier stones on this list resemble excavated artifacts. Chrysoprase feels curated. The gem belongs to the chalcedony family, a microcrystalline form of quartz, with nickel responsible for its celebrated green color. Unlike emerald, whose appeal often relies on transparency and brilliance, Chrysoprase wins through body color, softness of luster, and calm visual confidence. It does not demand attention, it earns it. Historically, Chrysoprase has enjoyed long periods of admiration. It has been used in jewelry, decorative objects, seals, and ornamental pieces across Europe and beyond. Certain periods even prized it among elite circles who appreciated materials that signaled taste rather than excess. That psychology still exists today, especially among viewers who prefer understated wealth. For mature audiences, this stone often lands differently than louder gems. It can look expensive without appearing aggressive, sophisticated without being fragile in identity. Useful value is one reason collectors continue to respect it. With quartz family hardness, Chrysoprase is generally more practical than several softer opaque green stones. It can work in rings, pendants, earrings, beads, and carved objects with sensible wear. Strong blows should still be avoided, but it offers better everyday usability than many assume. When evaluating quality, color saturation becomes central. Even vivid green with pleasant translucency can be especially desirable. Pale material may be affordable, while richer examples from respected sources can command significant premiums. Buyers should also know that prolonged heat or harsh storage conditions may affect appearance in some stones, so responsible care remains wise. Another hidden advantage is versatility. Chrysoprase can look equally convincing in antique-style gold settings, modern minimalist silver, or masculine signet designs. Few green gemstones transition across styles so easily. That broad appeal explains why it rises to this position. But polished prestige is only part of the story. The next gemstone returns to something heavier, darker, and more unmistakably tied to ancient copper itself. The kind of material that looks as though empires once built symbols of power from it. Ranked fifth, Smithsonite. Weight can be visual, not physical. Smithsonite proves it. Some green gemstones appear decorative. Smithsonite can look substantial, like a section of ceremonial armor, a shield fitting, or metalwork removed from an ancient gate after centuries of oxidation. Its surfaces often show soft, rounded botryoidal forms, silky polish, misty translucence, or dense matte layers that resemble weathered copper treated by time rather than tools. That unusual presence comes from the way the mineral forms. Smithsonite is a zinc carbonate that commonly develops in the oxidized zones of zinc ore deposits. During growth, it can create smooth grape-like masses, curved crusts, layered coatings, and compact nodules, unlike the faceted crystal habits many viewers associate with gemstones. Because of this, Smithsonite often feels sculptural before it feels gemological. Color can vary widely, but green examples are especially compelling for this countdown. Depending on trace elements and conditions, tones may range from pale celadon to richer mint, sea green, or muted olive shades. In premium polished pieces, the surface glow can mimic aged metal, softened by long exposure rather than sharp modern shine. Collectors often appreciate Smithsonite for exactly that reason. It resists the predictable formula of brilliance plus sparkle equals value. Instead, it offers shape, mood, and tactile personality. Mature buyers frequently connect with materials that seem storied rather than flashy, and Smithsonite fits that preference naturally. Useful value begins with understanding rarity versus visibility. Smithsonite is respected among mineral enthusiasts, but many mainstream jewelry shoppers know little about it. That gap creates opportunity for collectors seeking conversation pieces outside heavily marketed categories. Durability, however, requires realism. Smithsonite is softer than quartz family stones and should be worn with care. Pendants, earrings, display carvings, and occasional use jewelry are often safer choices than high-contact daily rings. Abrasion, impacts, and harsh chemicals can damage polish over time. When judging quality, buyers often prioritize attractive color, clean surface finish, strong luster, and appealing form. In cabochons, a luminous internal softness can be highly desirable. In specimens, dramatic, rounded growth structures may matter more than polish alone. There is also a psychological advantage to stones like Smithsonite. Because fewer people recognize it instantly, ownership can feel personal rather than performative. It signals curiosity, not trend following. That makes this placement deserved. Yet the midpoint of the countdown now gives way to a gemstone far more directly linked to copper itself, one whose swirling bands have become the visual definition of ancient green treasure for generations of collectors. Ranked fourth, malachite. Some gemstones need introduction. Malachite rarely does. Its layered greens, concentric circles, flowing bands, and dark-to-light waves instantly evoke the image of ancient copper transformed by centuries of air, moisture, and time. A polished piece can resemble the surface of a weathered bronze shield. Another may look like a decorative panel taken from a royal chamber long sealed behind stone doors. Few gemstones deliver the promise of ancient copper treasure as naturally and completely as this one. That connection is more than visual coincidence. Malachite forms in the oxidation zones of copper deposits where copper-rich minerals react near the Earth's surface over long periods. In other words, the same elemental story that gives old bronze statues their green patina also helps create this gemstone. That is why malachite feels so convincing. It does not imitate the world of aged copper. It belongs to it. Its patterns are one of nature's most recognizable signatures. Growth layers develop over time, creating eyes, swirls, ripples, stripes, and dramatic contrasts between forest green, mint green, and nearly black tones. Every cut reveals a different composition. Some look symmetrical and architectural. Others feel wild and fluid, like currents frozen in stone. This makes malachite especially powerful on camera. The eye recognizes it immediately, then keeps searching the details. For centuries, that same effect has made it desirable in the real world. Malachite has been carved into beads, vessels, boxes, decorative slabs, tabletops, columns, and ornamental objects used in elite interiors. It has appeared in palaces, churches, museums, and private collections. Even people unfamiliar with gemology often sense that it carries historical weight. Useful value begins with quality selection. Strong color contrast, vivid saturation, clean polish, and dynamic pattern movement are often most desirable. Pieces with dramatic circular eye formations or broad, uninterrupted banding can command greater collector interest than flatter, less expressive material. Practical buyers should also understand durability. Malachite is softer than many popular gemstones and can scratch or dull if treated carelessly. It is better suited for pendants, earrings, carvings, desk pieces, or protected statement jewelry than rough daily wear rings. Gentle cleaning and thoughtful storage help preserve its finish. There is another reason malachite ranks this high. Many green gemstones aim to look luxurious. Malachite looks powerful. It carries the presence of architecture, empire, and objects made to last beyond the people who commissioned them. Even so, the final three move into rarer territory where color becomes more intense, ownership becomes more exclusive, and the sense of treasure grows sharper. The next stone glows with a green so vivid it almost seems dangerous. Ranked third, Dioptase. There are moments when color stops feeling decorative and starts feeling dangerous. Dioptase exists in that narrow space. Its crystals can display an intense green so vivid that many first-time viewers assume the image has been edited. Yet this saturation is natural. Transparent to translucent faces catch light with startling force, producing flashes that feel less like ordinary gemstone brilliance and more like energy trapped inside mineral form. If ancient copper treasure ever held a hidden core of light, it might resemble this. That reaction comes from composition. Dioptase is a hydrated copper silicate, and copper is central to the extraordinary hue that defines it. While many green stones depend on soft body color or patterned surfaces, Dioptase often forms sharp crystals with clean geometric faces and internal luminosity. It replaces the aged, weathered look of earlier entries with something far more concentrated. Collectors recognize that distinction immediately. Fine specimens can show glassy emerald green crystals rising from pale limestone or dark matrix, creating natural contrast dramatic enough to rival curated museum displays. Even small examples can command serious attention when crystal clarity, shape, and color align. In many cases, the specimen itself is considered more desirable than any cut gem because the natural crystal architecture is part of the value. That creates a different type of prestige. This is not mainstream jewelry store luxury. It is connoisseur luxury, ownership based on knowledge rather than advertising. Useful value begins with caution. Dioptase is softer and more fragile than its appearance suggests. It has perfect cleavage, meaning sharp impacts or pressure can damage crystals or stones more easily than newcomers expect. For that reason, display specimens, protected collector settings, and careful handling are often wiser than daily wear jewelry. When evaluating quality, buyers usually look for strong saturation, crystal transparency, sharp termination points, minimal damage, balanced matrix presentation, and overall visual drama. Because fine material is limited, exceptional pieces can rise quickly in price once multiple desirable traits appear together. Another reason Dioptase ranks this high is emotional impact. Many gemstones invite admiration. Dioptase can trigger disbelief. It feels too bright, too pure, too intense to be ordinary geology. That sensation matters on camera. Viewers stop scrolling when something looks almost impossible. Yet even a stone this vivid does not claim the highest positions. The remaining two entries move into a quieter but even more exclusive realm, where rarity, restraint, and collector respect become more powerful than raw intensity. The next gemstone does not need to glow loudly. Its value is recognized in whispers. Ranked second, Uvarovite garnet. Prestige does not always arrive in large sizes or dramatic displays. Sometimes it appears in form so restrained that only experienced eyes recognize what is being seen. Uvarovite belongs to that category. Unlike many gemstones shaped into polished center stones, Uvarovite is most admired in its natural crystal form. Tiny, emerald green garnet crystals often grow as sparkling druzy carpets across dark rock, creating surfaces that resemble finely encrusted copper treasure hidden in a sealed chamber for centuries. Seen under light, the effect can feel like precious metal dusted with green fire. That appearance is one reason serious collectors value it so highly. Uvarovite is a chromium-rich member of the garnet family, and chromium is responsible for its vivid green color. The same element that can color some famous green gemstones also gives Uvarovite its unmistakable saturation. Yet, Unlike transparent stones cut for conventional jewelry, this mineral usually forms small crystals that are treasured exactly as nature created them. Nothing needs to be improved. This creates a rare psychological advantage. In a market dominated by cutting, enhancement, branding, and mass recognition, Uvarovite feels untouched. It carries the appeal of an object discovered rather than manufactured. For mature audiences who appreciate hidden quality, that distinction matters. It signals knowledge, patience, and taste beyond obvious status symbols. Useful value begins with understanding expectations. Large faceted Uvarovite gems are uncommon because crystals are typically small. Buyers are more likely to encounter specimens, druzy surfaces, collector pendants, or accent jewelry rather than oversized center stones. Anyone seeking this mineral should value authenticity of form rather than conventional gemstone proportions. When judging quality, collectors often focus on crystal brightness, strong, even green color, dense coverage across matrix, attractive contrast with host rock, and minimal damage to exposed crystal faces. Pieces with vivid sparkle and balanced natural composition can command significant interest even when physically modest in size. There is also durability logic here. As a garnet family mineral, crystal hardness can be respectable. But exposed druzy surfaces still require careful handling to avoid chipping or abrasion. Display, pendants, and occasional wear jewelry are usually smarter choices than rough constant contact. Another reason Uvarovite rises this high is scarcity of recognition. Many people never learn it exists, that obscurity protects its mystique. Some stones impress crowds. Uvarovite impresses collectors. Only one entry remains now, and it reaches a different summit entirely. A gemstone that looks less like treasure preserved by civilization and more like nature, creating a masterpiece no civilization could reproduce. In first place, Hiddenite. At the top of this list stands a gemstone that feels less excavated than awakened. Hiddenite carries the green of ancient copper transformed into light. Where earlier entries resembled relics, coins, statues, and weathered metal, Hiddenite introduces something rarer: elegance without losing history. Its finest stones show luminous yellow-green to rich, fresh green tones that seem to glow from within, as though centuries of patina had been refined into transparency. Instead of looking buried, it looks reborn. That quality is why it claims the final position. Hiddenite is the green variety of spodumene, colored primarily by trace chromium in suitable material. When crystal quality is strong, the gem can display impressive clarity, elongated crystal habit, and a clean brilliance that separates it from opaque or heavily patterned stones earlier in the countdown. It still echoes the world of ancient copper treasures, but in a more elevated form, where rough age has become polished legacy. Collectors value Hiddenite for another reason. It lives in the narrow space between recognition and obscurity. It is respected enough to matter, uncommon enough to remain interesting, and unfamiliar enough that many casual buyers overlook it entirely. In collecting psychology, that combination can be powerful. It suggests discernment rather than trend following. The stone also carries historical significance through its association with discoveries in North Carolina, where material helped establish Hiddenite as a distinct and desirable American gem. Geographic identity often adds depth for collectors who appreciate stones tied to real places rather than anonymous supply chains. Useful value begins with realism about wearability. Hiddenite can produce beautiful faceted gems, but like other spodumene varieties, it has cleavage and should be worn thoughtfully. Protective settings are wise, especially for rings. Pendants, earrings, and occasional formal wear are often safer long-term choices than heavy daily impact use. When evaluating quality, Buyers typically focus on lively natural color, transparency, cutting precision, brightness, and stones that avoid overly pale or washed appearance. Fine, saturated material can become notably more desirable because top examples are not common. Another reason Hiddenite wins this countdown is emotional balance. Some gemstones are admired for raw power, others for rarity, others for age. Hiddenite combines all three while adding grace. It still whispers of ancient copper treasures, yet it no longer looks trapped in the past. It looks like history translated into something timeless, and that may be the highest form of value any gemstone can reach, not merely preserving beauty from another era, but carrying it forward into the present. Gold may have built empires, but time gave copper something gold could never own: character. And somehow, deep within the earth, nature created gemstones carrying that same aged beauty, not as metal, but as crystal. From relic-like patterns to colors that seemed recovered from lost civilizations, these stones prove that value is not always found in brightness. Sometimes it lives in texture, rarity, history, and the feeling that something has survived far longer than expected. So which of these ancient copper-inspired gemstones would deserve a place in your collection? Leave your favorite in the comments, and if hidden stories, rare minerals, and remarkable gemstones belong on your screen, subscribe and join us for the next discovery. There are still treasures most people never notice.